Welcome to Not What I Thought. I'm Erika.
I'm Yolanda.
And I'm Becca. We're therapists, entrepreneurs, and perfectly imperfect humans. We first met during a business owner retreat where we became fast friends because we're not afraid to be real and ask the hard questions about life. What we thought it would be like, how messy it actually is, and the courage it takes to create the life we want.
We continue to build our friendship and personal growth through our own retreats. We find the deepest connection in sharing our struggles and finding what we have in common rather than what divides us.
We're breaking down hard topics on our podcast and together have conversations about what it takes to find real talk, real support, and real rest for professional women. We're glad you're here. Join us on your favorite podcast platform. I want to talk today about vacations.
Ooh.
So let's go on vacation. Sounds great, right?
It always sounds great in theory.
Okay, that's where we're going.
Oh.
So I have these wonderful memories from being a kid about how fun family vacations were. My family didn't have a ton of money, so it wasn't things usually that were tremendously elaborate, but we would like go camping with the extended family and we went river rafting and we would just go like play at the beach and stuff. And I just like these memories were so fun. And so I have this very positive association with like family vacations are awesome. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then which they probably are awesome when you're a kid and a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get to be a grown-up and I have my own kids. Um, and I still have this association that like, oh, family vacation is going to be great. And to be fair, the couple of trips that my husband and I took before we had kids were very fun. So positive association continues. Then you have children, and it's a whole different thing. And
Yeah.
I remember we would go, we live in another state than our parents. And so going to visit family for Christmas was like a big trip, right? Or we would get together with my mom or sometimes my extended family to do family vacation stuff. And I remember being so just like exhausted
Mm-hmm.
and bitter, kind of resentful
Mm-hmm.
at the end of it. That's like, hey, I had this expectation that we were going to come and have this like lots of fun, wonderful connecting time with family, that we'd be sitting around a campfire or sitting around a dining room table,
Mm-hmm.
playing board games and doing whatever we, would do, and that it would be this really great time. And then my experience was that like I still had to figure out how to feed my kid. I had to
Mm-hmm.
deal with kid or kids who were um, stressed out, melting down because
Mm-hmm.
they're like out of their normal routines.
Mm-hmm.
They're not sleeping as well. They're not getting their naps in. They're, maybe not acclimated to, like how to adjust to being in a different environment. So they're just harder. And so
Mm-hmm.
my experience now with the family vacation is that it's all of the normal stuff that I would have to do as a parent, but harder.
Mm-hmm. Plus more, yeah.
Plus more, right? Because the
Yeah.
kids are more difficult. We're in a different routine. Now it's not just, oh, I need to adapt to the needs of my small children, but also I need to adapt to the needs of the other family members who are here and maybe grandparents who have an expectation that the kids are going to want to, be
Right.
spending time with them. And maybe the kids want to, but also they're tired because they haven't had a nap or,
Yeah.
they've eaten a ton of sugar and so their diet is off and grandparents don't, then you look like a terrible person because you're like, no, they can't have another ice cream.
Oh.
So
Yeah,
fun.
and it's just so fun, right? And then when we would go, I think that my ex-husband had similar expectations, like when we would go to visit his family, that this was his time that he got to be with his parents and with his buddies from high school. And it was often this like conflictual thing because there was a part of me that wanted that for him and
Mm-hmm.
wanted to support him. And like, of course, you should get to see your people. 'Cause
Mm-hmm.
like I said, we lived a couple states away. So, like, of course, you should want to see them. But then the actual lived experience of it was like, wait a second, we just went and had this trip and I had to do all the parent work. because
Hmm.
you wanted to go be with your and it's not like I don't even want to paint him in this bad light. Like it
Hmm.
felt like the whole situation was a setup for us
Right.
to
It was doomed from the beginning.
have like fights and hard feelings and for everyone to be in a bad mood.
I hate you all and your mamas.
And like even now, looking back on it, I'm like, no, I really do believe that he should have been able to have his time with his family. And
Yeah.
it was so hard for me to be there at his parents' house, especially early in the marriage when I didn't know
Hmm.
them that well. It's like, well, you took off and left me here with your parents and I got the
Hmm.
kids, and it just everything was so hard about it.
Hmm.
And I would come home and like, wasn't that family trip great? Like, no, not really.
Negative. That was horrible.
It was really hard. But do I wish we hadn't gone? No, because I believe that spending time with family is important. And like,
Yeah, just not that way.
yeah, so it's not as simple to say that's terrible, let's never do it again.
Right. Yeah.
I'm really building this up to be like, it was hard. It was hard to
It,
do family vacations when we had small kids. Yeah. So that's it. That's the episode. Family vacations are hard.
and everybody says amen. Uh-huh.
Amen. The
Yep.
end.
Right
Okay, just
on.
kidding. I have more.
I don't, Becca, as you were talking, like my shoulders started to tense and rise. I'm just like, I'm like, breathe. You you are not reliving that experience. Your kids are grown now.
That you're remembering what it was like with your kids. Is
Oh
that what you're
my
saying?
gosh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, my family of origin dynamics, because, uh were we've never lived in the same place as our families of origin. And so, to go and visit my family in the holidays was like a 8-10 hour drive. Um, and, the family of origin dynamics were tense, to say the least. And then like everybody wants everybody, or like there was an expectation that everyone be under one roof, and like what could go wrong there. And like traveling, just the, oh my gosh, just the stress of the travel of getting there was enough to make me bonkers. Um,
Yeah.
and then my mom had this thing where she wanted to parade us around to all of her friends. And like these were people that I didn't really know, and didn't, I'm like, I didn't drive all of these hours to hang out with your friends. Let's not do that, please. So,
Yeah. Yeah. We used to, I'm forgetting this element, and you're talking about an 8 to 10 hour drive. When our kids were really small,
mhm.
we thought the best way to make the drive doable was to do it at night
Right.
because then they would sleep the whole time.
Right.
So that was another part of the whole family trip thing, is that we would take shifts driving through the night to get to
Hmm.
our family, and then we would arrive at our family, just both of us completely sleep deprived and exhausted, and like put that on top of everything else. Just
Right.
like, oh, what were we doing?
Much less when we traveled around the holidays, packing up all the gifts and stuff to, uh, mm, no. Mm-mm.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
One of my general coping skills in life is I just pretend I'm in an episode of Seinfeld and everybody's doing like their role, and I'm seeing it from the outside as like I'm exaggerating all these mundane pieces and dynamics, and that's family vacation to me. Everybody does exactly what you expect them to do, but then they don't think it's going to happen. But you're like, I could have written this like a year ago. This is exactly how I thought that this would go.
Oh man, there's that piece too. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
like, why are we all trying to be under one roof? That never works well. It's there's a
But we're
meltdown
still
at
gonna
some
keep
point.
trying.
We still keep doing it. I don't
Okay, so here's where things started to shift for me.
know.
Is I can't remember exactly the timeline on some of this, but I want to say it was pretty close when we met at the business owner retreat. And then I started doing retreats regularly. And then I also have a good friend who I went hiking with, and we started
Mhm.
doing backpacking trips together. So overnight camping trips.
Mhm. Mhm.
And at first, when I started doing that stuff, I would feel a little bit guilty. Like I'm
Mhm.
going to do this thing without the family.
Mhm.
Right. Um, but it was stuff that I wanted to do that was important to me. So I just like went ahead with it, even with the guilt.
Mhm.
Um, and then what I would find is I would come back from those experiences and like I would be so happy. I'd be
Mhm.
so excited to see my family. I would have the experience of being like re-energized and refreshed and whatever. And so kind of let go of the guilt. And then the reframe that became useful to me after that is that a family trip is a family trip,
Mhm.
but family trips are not my vacation.
Mhm.
Family trip might be vacation for my kids. Sometimes it might be vacation for my spouse. Often I think not, but like that's fine, right?
Mhm.
But like a family trip is one thing, and a vacation for the parents, that's a
Mhm.
different experience. And we're
Mhm.
setting ourselves up when we expect that our family trip is going to be a vacation because it's not.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love that frame.
Yeah. And it's been really helpful actually, because then I get to go on vacation
Uh-huh.
without guilt because everybody needs vacation.
Mhm.
We frame vacation as being a break from your regular responsibilities. So yeah,
Mhm.
family trip is not vacation unless you happen to have a family situation where like the grandparents step in and really do take over the parenting duties, but often that's not actually functional because your kids want you when you're there, right? Like it's
Mhm.
um and like yeah, I deserve a break as much as anybody else does. And so why would I think that going into a situation where I do all my normal duties plus some, why would I think
Mhm.
that that's a vacation? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, I'm also thinking of just kind of the way that we do like frame those family trips as vacation and even like taking time off from work. Because that was one of my husband's big things. He's like, this is not, I'm taking quote unquote vacation days from work, but this is not a vacation.
Yes. Yes.
All of
Thanks.
my vacation days are going to this thing that I would not choose as like, something like you said, a break from the norm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking to the phrase you hear a lot of people say, I need a vacation from my vacation. Like you get back and you're so exhausted from what you just did that, yeah, we think it's a break, but then thinking about getting back into work life feels really hard.
Yeah.
Well, what comes to mind right now for me is that just that framework that you described, Becca, because I started doing something similar um, as my kids were a little bit older. I wish that I had realized that I had the agency to make the decision when they were younger. Um, but yeah, over time, and it started out kind of similarly to what you described. It started out as like a quote unquote work trip, right? Oh, there's this training. It just so happens to be in California at this retreat center, but I'm getting CEUs from it, so we're just going to call it that. And then I was like, well, why does it have to be tied to like a CEU or, continuing education? Like, so then I started like taking smaller trips by myself to like, like a spiritual retreat and then a longer trip and sabbatical. But yeah, it is. It's that distinguishing factor of like realizing, I think for me, being honest with myself that that's actually when I need to come back refreshed and excited and ready to step back into life and appreciate my family more.
That you need that time alone away in order to come
Yeah,
back into. Yeah.
for sure. What about you, Erica?
Yeah, I'm thinking through a few things. Like when I went on sabbatical and did a trip to Disney all by myself, it was a bit uncomfortable. It was a weird
Hmm.
experience because I had that thought of like, I'm the only need that matters. And like
Hmm.
even identifying what that next thing was going to be was really, really hard. And I noticed that I felt more comfortable anticipating and being on top of scheduling things for the family and being the one who's like, okay, this is what we're doing next. This is, so and so wants to eat this. When I just had to only make a decision for myself, it was
Hmm.
challenging.
Hmm.
Stressed me for sure. But yeah, in the end, I guess it did help reframe like, okay, it can be okay that yours are the only needs that matter.
Hmm.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I have had that experience of like, oh, it's just me. I don't actually know what I want to eat for dinner. I don't really, it can be uncomfortable.
Yeah. And then I think the the discomfort around that is uncomfortable too. Because then I'm like, wait, it shouldn't be this hard. What is wrong with me?
Supposed to be enjoying this.
I am an educated, strong woman. I should know what I want.
Mhm.
But I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember having the thought, like, it's so less disruptive. It's just me, mainly about bathroom stops. Like, because
Mm.
somehow every person needs to go to the bathroom at a different time when you pass a different bathroom, and you're like, why can't we all just go in one spot? And
No, they want to check out every single bathroom on the property.
we
They're
just
choosing
visited
their favorite.
minutes ago, but now the other person has to go. Which is obviously
Mm.
fine. It was just kind of a fun, it was another Seinfeld moment of like, how many bathrooms can we stop
Mhm.
at? When my were the only bathroom needs, I was like, I can pick whatever bathroom I want to go to. Really. Yeah.
So true. It's so true.
I have had a lot of time in the last couple of years to have that like break from caring for other people's needs as I've been, separated and only have my kids 50% of the time. So the other 50% of the time, like it is just me.
Mhm.
Um, and it's been real interesting to kind of learn myself in a new way in that process. Um, and I'm discovering like new preferences that I
Mhm.
didn't know that I had,
Mhm.
which is just interesting. It's
Mhm.
like um I don't know, maybe around certain foods too. It's not that I
Mhm.
really dislike a particular food, but I would buy it regularly and cook it often because my family liked it and they would eat it and it didn't
Mhm.
bother me. And now that it's just me a lot more, I'm like, oh, I actually don't even like this. Hmm, maybe I'm not gonna
Mhm.
do that anymore. Yeah.
Mhm.
Or I've discovered now I'm a lot more sensitive to like overstimulation with sound,
Mhm.
which I think I just hadn't ever had occasion to
Mhm.
realize before because I always had this noise of at least three other people in the house with me
Mhm.
all the time. And now that I have long periods of time where it's just me, and then my house is noisy again, I'm like, ah, what? Oh,
Mhm.
I love you guys, but just
Mhm.
noisy.
Well,
Like, but I wasn't aware that I had that because I had just become so acclimated.
Mhm.
So that's been interesting. Just kind of neither here nor there for the vacation conversation, but like maybe opportunity to get to know yourself when you are the
Yeah.
only person whose needs matter in that moment.
Yeah. I was thinking similarly as my kids have gotten older and like now we're empty nesters. I was very similar experience. And what's standing out to me is I mean, of course, vacations look a lot different.
Yeah.
Even family vacations at this point look a lot different. And, I am able to kind of get a break from things. And it's kind of cool, because now the kids are the ones who are cooking. Um, but even how my day-to-day routine is completely different than when the kids were around.
So on this idea of like we all need breaks for vacation, and a real break from our regular responsibilities, I wanted to share just a little tip that was helpful for us when our kids were really small.
Mhm.
My ex-husband was, well, let me think about when, maybe it doesn't matter when we decided this, because there were times when we had small kids where I was working full time and he was doing
Mhm.
most of the childcare. And then there were times when he was working full time and I was doing most of the childcare.
Mhm.
Um, and we sort of had this agreement that, like, while the one person is at work, they are working and doing their job, and the other person's job is childcare. That makes sense, right? But when the working person comes home, we are now equally responsible for childcare, right? Because there could be this way of thinking that's like, well, he's been at work all day, and so he needs to come home and have a rest. So
Mhm.
I should keep doing the dinner. I should keep doing all the kids' stuff because he needs a
Mhm.
rest from work. But if we
Mhm.
frame that other labor, the childcare labor, as actual work, then why don't I also get a break
Mhm.
from work at the end of my workday, right?
Mhm.
And that understanding was actually really helpful for us to know that, like, even the person who's working full time, like, they should, if that's the arrangement, right? Because there was parts that I was working, he was working full time and I was working part time, but whatever.
Mhm.
Like, when we are both at home, that duty should be shared, which means
Mhm.
that sometimes he puts them to bed, sometimes I put them to bed.
Mhm.
Sometimes he's in charge of dinner, sometimes I'm in charge of dinner, right? And if he gets home from work and needs to have some time to, like, rest and relax and maybe go out with friends or have some kind of, physical activity, the softball league or whatever, the soccer league or bowling or whatever the thing is, like, I should also get to have that and to have
Mhm.
that without guilt.
Mhm.
That I'm like, oh, well, he has to come home from work and take care of the kids. Well, like, no, because once we are both home, now it is shared responsibility. And just like vacations, we can have these tiny breaks, in our day to day or week to week where, like, yeah, if you're doing most of the childcare, you also need a break. Or if you and
Yeah.
your partner both work and you come home, like, if you're both working full time, home responsibilities should be 50-50 too. And not this perception that, like, you do, I don't know, falling into a traditional gender role around, because you're female, you should be doing most of the childcare or
Yeah.
all of the cooking or the cleaning or the managing of the family schedule or, any of those kind of things. What are you smiling about, Yolanda?
I'm just thinking about
Preach, Becca.
yeah. And um I'm I am feeling like heat rise in my body when I think back to comments that were made you know when our kids were younger. Well, isn't it so great that your husband is babysitting your kids so that you can come and have a ladies' night? And I'm like, um,
Like, that's not a
he's
thing.
their father. Like, he's their parent. Parents do not babysit their kids. What are we talking about right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm remembering that time when I was working full time and my ex-husband was staying home with our daughter, and he would cook most of the time. And then
Mhm.
I would bring to lunch leftovers of what he'd cooked. And I remember people in the break room at work just being like floored. Like, wow, you eat really good food. Wow, your husband makes that for you? Like, nobody over here is jaw to the floor with some man who's like, your wife made that for you? The leftovers? Like, come on.
I don't know what it says, but yeah, to the same point, like pretty regularly if I talk to my mom, And we're getting ready to, like, because she always wants to talk on Sunday afternoon. And I'm like, oh, it's time for dinner. What did Shaman make, my husband? What did he make for dinner? And so pretty regularly, I'm like, well, he made this, but every once in a while, I'm like, well, I made dinner. But he's been the lead on, cooking and stuff for a long time, simply by way of like it made more sense. He worked from home for forever, and it was just easier for him to be able to prep things, during the day as we went along. So another one of those gender role stereotypes that our society can fall into, that can kind of keep us trapped in, not being able to have a break from those things, because those tasks are not as cut and dry as, the beginning and the end of a workday. um not that not that not that in our culture these days the beginning and the end of a workday is very cut and dry, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly the stuff that I was coming up against when I first started doing trips on my own without my kids, is this like, am I being so selfish that I think that
Mhm.
I who am I that I think that I get to go like spend this time and spend this money away from the
Mhm.
family on just me?
Mhm.
But that reframe of like, no, I need everybody else got a vacation when we went to visit family. That was not my vacation. I get a vacation too. Just
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
I think almost each subgroup of the family needs a vacation, like each parent, but then also a couple's trip, but then also a family. Something, right?
Mhm.
Even if it's not a trip, an outing, a time, right, for each
Mhm.
grouping to get a break or a chance to have entertainment, fun without a lot of other obligation. Which I
And
know people think that's super weird. Like my husband and I travel alone a lot, and we get lots of commentary about that. Like, you're going to Disney without your kids? Yeah, they've been to Disney. They're okay.
It's a lot more fun without them sometimes.
Sometimes, right? Because
Yeah.
you're around the world in Epcot and it's fine.
yeah, and I think sometimes kids need a break from each other too. Like it's okay to take them to do a one-on-one thing, or that the kids get. Yeah, and we're talking about it in the context of vacations, right? And it's maybe on my mind because last weekend I took one kid camping and the other kid stayed with their dad. And we had
Mhm.
so much fun.
Mhm.
Um, but even if it's not vacation, if it's like they're allowed to have an activity that's just theirs, let them sometimes go over to a friend's house or a cousin's house or grandparents' house or whoever, and not always have to have the sibling or siblings with them. That
Mhm.
they get a little bit of time to kind of be, to our point, right? Like be their own person, have a break from the
Mhm.
normal sibling rivalry tensions that show up,
Mhm.
or,
Mhm.
just like, especially if you're the younger sibling, right? Like maybe sometimes I want to be able to have my opinion without having my older siblings saying first, well, no, don't you want to do this? Right?
Mhm.
The older sibling gets to just do what they want without like, oh, we can't do that because your little brother can't.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, even the break that the kids need from time to time from us as their parents. I said it.
Oh, you're right.
I said it. It's true.
It's true.
Especially when their parent is grumpy from not getting a vacation from their everyday responsibilities.
There it is.
Not that that
Come back,
would be me,
everybody's
because
right
I'm a
there.
delight. Ask all of my family, they'll agree. Mm.
I mean, I know we're framing it as taking a break from like all the stresses, right? But I think also focusing on the nourishment or the enjoyment that you get while you're doing the vacation, the trip, the CEUs, whatever it is, right? Just sitting in a room alone and looking at the wall and with no sound, like whatever that is.
Yes.
It's both. It's a break from the stress, but it's also a chance to build up whatever it is that you're needing.
Yeah,
And then
that
you
you
come
might
back
not
to each other.
realize.
Yeah. Um,
Becca,
yes,
what does your heart know to be true?
my heart knows that I deserve downtime and rest and fun as much as anybody else in my family, and that it is okay for me to have a vacation that is separate from a family trip. What does your heart know to be true, Erica?
My heart knows that each person in the family deserves to have a focus on their needs, and that we can go into these trips or breaks with intention to give each person what they need. What about you, Yolanda? What does your heart know to be true?
Well, I think on this side of having raised kids and, they're adults, what my heart maybe is curious about, not necessarily know to be true, is how I might help make my adult children's experience of family vacations different. I can frame that differently as far as how I can show up and maybe give them a break from their everyday activities so that they can be nourished a little bit, at least have moments of that.
I love that.
And I love you guys. Yay.
We are so excited to announce our upcoming live event. Join us online on January 19th, 2025, where we'll guide you through the sometimes shame and guilt-ridden experience of setting goals for the year. We'll have real talk about how goal setting can lead to burnout and real support for visioning a 2025 that includes real rest, connection, and play. Go to notwhatithought.com to register. We hope to see you there.